Hi, I'm Wes Allen with the M-Tales, and recently 1985 Games was kind enough to send me a box of goodies. Today I'm going to look at some of their Dungeon Craft assets for tabletop role-playing. Let's roll it. So Dungeon Craft sent me two battle maps. One is the city pack here, and if you unfold this, you get two different textures. These are dry erasable, so it's got the sheen on it, and you can fold it out pretty nice and get yourself a nice map to work on, which is really, really fun. One of the things I do like about the battle maps is that they are foldable, so you can store them on a shelf rather easily. However, it's going to take a while for the folds to break in a little bit so it lays flat on the table without bubbling. Just something that happens with an item like this. It's folded up like a map, and after a while it'll break in and it'll be much more usable. So play more often. Now, one of the Dungeon Craft packs that 1985 Games sent me was the Brine Break, which has some nice reversible assets on it. It is set up as a 1-inch grid, so you can put your minis on it, which is very nice. And when I say they're reversible, is you have a broken version here or an underwater treasure chest there. And when you flip it, now the underwater treasure chest is closed and the planks on the docks are a lot better kept up, and the crabs come up out of the water. So when you're playing, if you have a crab that's submerged and you want to suddenly have it come out of the water and start grabbing at your players, you flip over the token and there you go. It's a really nice setup and a nice design. I really like it. These are also glossy, so you can do dry erase markers on them. If you want to say they're now stunned or they're prone or they're poisoned, you can just write a P on top of the token and that's what's going to happen. It really is kind of nice. These do have to be cut out, and one of the things that I don't like about this particular set is that the lines that mark where you're cutting, I can't even make it out on here really well, are black. With a dark background like this, I really would have much rather seen them be a white line to tell you where to cut so that it would be much easier to do. But let's look through some of these. You do have a set of tokens. You do have some adventurers, which is nice. Of course, you have ale, although if it was going for the Pirates of the Caribbean, I guess it would have to be rum and net, different things that are reversible. Little things to be putting in for NPCs or even for your players on a short notice, which is fun. It has a nice tower with some different floors. So you go up and down. There's the base floor, and there's the first floor, which is really cool. It has some rooms or small houses that you can set up on your map, and a cool ship, which I like. Here's a sunken ship here. Here's the top deck of a sailing vessel. You can go below decks too. There's the stairs to go through, and the sunken vessel keeps going on. The top level of that tower is a lighthouse. You got some flames down here burning, and the lightkeeper's house as well. And I like how the stairs go up and down there. This is a fun little place for a fishery, I guess, or they're cutting whales, or I don't know where that meat's coming from, but you sail the boat in and the blood's here in the water. You can put it on your map. When the players want to go inside, you flip it over and there they are. I think this is a tavern. Very nice layout for that. And this just saves some time. Then, of course, you have to have horrible, horrible beasts that do terrible things. Some more tokens for variation and some underwater creatures as well. So all in all, I really like the Brine Break setup. It's really nice, a good amount of assets for it. And like I said, the one thing I have that's a critique of it is to maybe change those cutting lines to white, because that's going to be a lot easier to see to cut things out, particularly for someone like me who is not good with scissors and tends to cut things in places where they're not supposed to go. I see myself just losing my train of thought and actually cutting the grid at one point. I just know that's going to happen at some point. So a white line would differentiate that pretty nicely, and it would make it a little easier to cut out. So the second big box that they gave me was the Realm's Edge collection. This has all the Dungeon Craft pieces from their Kickstarter, which is really fun. Like it says here, it does work with the wet and dry erase markers, which is very, very helpful. And let's take some of this out here. Boom. Gives you a nice instruction sheet on how to use Dungeon Craft. That's very helpful. Nice little note in there. Let's put that over there. And then it just has a bunch of assets that you can use that are, again, reversible. So bottom floor of a broken tower. Now you can go up to the next level. Pretty fun. These also can be cut out, or should be cut out, and there are dotted black lines right about there to see where it goes. But I do like how you have multi-level buildings that you can just go through, even to a roof. So you put that at the top and you're good. Some other, kind of like a fairy forest setup. Got to have giant mushrooms, a lot of trees like that to be able to set up some terrain as you are going. Really fun. And then you get into the city stuff. So this looks like a nice little kitchen setup. I'm always looking for something like that. Very fun. There's the roof for the front of it, and there is the inside if the players decide to go indoors. Gotta love a place that's building coffins. Multiple floors of building coffins, which is really fun. There's the ceiling, or the roof, and here's the top floor. So there's some carpentry going on there. Here's another tavern. That's actually a really nice layout. You can have some fun with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some of these out and lay out a battle map and just kind of show you how you can put together a map for adventuring. I'll be right back. Okay, so here is the battle map. You can see it does not lay flat right now. You can see how the glare is coming out. I do believe that as these seams break in a little bit, it's going to lay a little bit flatter. These are set up to a 1-inch grid, which you should be able to see on the page. And what I have here is a Dungeon Craft building. So we're going to put that right down there to match it up with the 1-inch frame. And there you have your nice little building, which is really nice. If people want to go inside, well, you flip it out and now they're inside. But let's lay up an entire scene, shall we? Okay, so here's my battle map. I have moved my camera up a little bit just so you can see a little bit more of it. Here is my multi-level tavern. So this is the main common room right here, and I'm going to put that on the map. Now, when players are outside, if their tokens are out here, let's make this nice little charger a token. It's not quite 1 inch, but you know, they're not going to see inside the tavern right then. So what we'll do is we'll put the roof on top, and that's what they're going to see as they're walking through the town. Well, what if they want to go to the library? Well, no problem. We're going to put the library over here. And now there are 2 buildings that they can go to. And that's kind of fun. And what if we have a couple other buildings? You know, little smaller dwellings like this. Well, we'll just put that down and we'll line that up as well. Suddenly you have a city block that people are able to walk down and go into. They say, hey, I want to go into that tavern. Well, you're going to lift off the main floor, and there's your token, and they're now inside the tavern, ready to get into a wonderful fight. Or if they decide they're going to go into the library, you flip that over, you have them go in the main door, and now they're inside the library. Sorry for the glare on my light right there. And that's really how this works. So what do I appreciate with Dungeon Craft as terrain? Well, first and foremost is the artwork. It is really bright. It has a good level of detail. And yet with that brightness and detail, it doesn't become cartoonish. There's enough flavor there that it fits the environment of a fantasy medieval adventure game without being overly dark or overwhelming. It's going to pop on the table And I really appreciate it. There's details like lit candles and rumpled beds, and even the blood in the water at the butchery place that's right by the docks. They all are there, and it makes the place feel lived in without being too overwhelming. They don't go for realism, but they do go for enough detail that it looks very good, and I appreciate that. I love how easy it is to store. You cut these things up and get them into their right pieces and organize them. And if you have several file folders and a filing cabinet, well, you're golden. You've got your terrain stored. You don't need bins. You don't need massive shelves to put stuff on or a whole room dedicated to painting minis or creating different terrain. It's just in your folder and it's there. And I love how easy it is to improvise. If you've got a random encounter that gets rolled up, you don't have to have a map done in advance, which is what I have to do on my digital tabletop. If you want to just throw out a battle map and a couple of trees and maybe a building or two to give you the setting, well, then that's your setting. You don't have to worry about anything else. It's really easy to do. And yeah, you can do the same thing with a battle map and a dry erase marker, but it doesn't look as good. It's not going to have that pop. It won't have that neat detail and the cool color. And that's one thing I really appreciate about Dungeon Craft. It really does shine when it's put out on the mat and your players are going through this world. So what are some things that give me pause about the Dungeon Craft terrain? Well, I've already mentioned inside my show and tell that I would like to see the two cut lines turned from black to white. It would just make them easier to see, and it's not going to lend as much confusion as to where I cut, because my old eyes can't see the dotted lines, and I know at some point I'm just going to cut one of the 1-inch squares because, well, there's a line there. And if they were white, at least I'd have that contrast. This is to cut, this is to stay, and that would be really, really helpful. The other thing that I would like to see maybe added to the Dungeon Craft terrain pieces, particularly the bigger things like the multi-level buildings, is to have a little notation put onto it like Tavern A Level 1. That way I can store them and I know what order to put them out on the table if people go up and down stairs. Now, I can put tags onto the pieces, little post-it notes or whatever, and that's probably what I'm going to do if I ever use this in person for a game, which I am planning to try at some point, but I think it would be nice to have them on there. It would just be one step that would be taken away from me to have to organize the stuff. And I do understand that there's probably some folks out there that to have Tavern A Level 1 would break some of the immersion, but I think that's a good halfway point that people can meet at. But really, that's it. Those are the only things that give me pause about this. A lot of what gives me pause about using Dungeon Craft comes with my own fiddliness with physical things at the table. I'd be throwing stuff around, and in my nerves, I'd probably just launch a frisbee at somebody's head and maybe give them a nice paper cut. But that's all on me. The product itself is really, really good. Great artwork, neat differentiation. It gives you a sense of immersion without being overwhelming, and it's easy to just improvise on the fly and throw these things out and you're done. The fact that my only difficulties with the product are the two cut lines and keeping the things organized, it shows that it's a really well-designed system. I very much appreciate it. Now, you can currently get Dungeon Craft from the 1985 Games website. Smaller packs of terrain, like the Brine Break, which is the ocean pieces that I showed in my show and tell portion of this video, it's inexpensive. As of this recording right now, it's on sale for $5. It's normally $14.99, which is not a huge expense. Larger packs, like the Realm's Edge pack, that is the majority of the terrain that I got, well, they're going to cost a little bit more, $40 for a significant amount of terrain, which is not that bad. The different battle mats that you can get for city and forest and ocean, they're going to cost you a little bit mid-range. It's about $17, $16.99. This is not a bad deal. This is something that if you just want a little extra terrain to put out there, maybe you don't have time to go and build the new bridge, or you don't have time to go structure a forest. You just want to throw some cards out on the table and be done. This is a great way to go. Next week, what I'm going to do is to look at the 4th edition of Basic Fantasy RPG. There's not as drastic a change in the system as we originally thought would have to be made when the whole OGL mess dropped in early January, but there's still some differences there, and I want to take a look at some of the things that they've done to maybe improve the flow of the game and the look of the book. So until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.